So I made the decision and the conviction, right, that I've shifted into my highest timeline. And when I did that, I manifested my dream relationship. I've talked about it on this channel. I want to talk about it more because, of course, I wanted to be in this incredible, fulfilling, beautiful relationship, but I wanted to find a partner that truly recognized the truth of this work, right? As a byproduct of that, it's such an amazing experience. I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm laughing, I'm smiling every day. We have so many inside jokes, but I truly believe all that is for a greater purpose, right? This relationship is for a greater purpose to deepen my relationship with God. It wasn't always this way because as a child, I grew up in a very, I guess you'd say, like, unpredictable household, right? And my mom and dad are amazing. I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my family very much. But, there was like this realization within me as I started to grow up, especially as I started to get into this work of spiritual personal development, I started to understand the relationship between our belief systems and also how we processed our triggers and our traumas. And my family, they've always kind of dealt with their feelings through medicating themselves with drugs and alcohol. And even like when I would look at the stories that we held around love and relationships, there was always this programming or this belief, right, that love equaled chaos, right? It meant unpredictability. Love was always something that kept you on the edge of your seat. It was always dramatic and heated and super, super charged, right? I kind of just grew up observing that, and that's what we do as kids, right? Like, we're kind of just sponges, so we kind of take everything in on a subconscious level. When we do that, we grow up with these belief systems, and then we end up oftentimes manifesting like very similar circumstances as our caretakers, right? And that's what happened with me. I was in that relationship for about 6 years, right? And now when I look back at that relationship, I could see how, all the little pieces fit, right? And at that time, in that relationship, I had decided, you know what, like, I need to completely leave my environment because I was just around a lot of negative influences, right? A lot of drama. And I was already so conditioned by, the relationships around me, what people would tell me that relationships were supposed to look like, how love was supposed to be like, right? And I kind of just had to step away from all that, step away from everyone, and decide and embark on a new journey that I was going to figure out the truth of who I really was. Because for a long time, I think I had desired more than anything, just like a relationship where I could be myself. And I think that's what we all want. We all just want a relationship where, where we're not put down, where we are heard, seen, and validated, right? And I think more than all of that, I wanted a relationship where I felt safe to evolve my consciousness, where I could talk about these spiritual concepts in a way that I wasn't going to be judged for it. I felt like being in that relationship in a lot of ways at that time was dimming my light, right? Because I was trying to please everyone else. I was trying to please that person and their family, and I wasn't focusing on myself. And I think all of that led me to a breaking point that God was preparing me for. And I see this a lot in life, right? Especially in people, not only family members, but also friends, right? Also, people that are no longer in my life, but they would also be in these manipulative and abusive relationships, and they'd be in them for 5 years, sometimes a decade, right? And you might know people like this, that no matter what they do, no matter how unhappy they are, they continue to stay in these relationships that no longer serve them. A lot of this has to do with the way that we've been programmed and patterned around love and relationships, especially how we view ourselves and how we identify in life, right? How we view ourselves in relation to love. And so there's usually a subconscious belief that, love is temporary, right? Or deep down, we truly believe that we're not worthy of a loving, fulfilling relationship, even though we desire one, right? Or that love and commitment is hard to come by. And so these programs, they're usually not formed overnight. Usually these deeply ingrained beliefs are formed during that 3 years old to 8 years old time period. It's from those ages where your identity and your self-concept, it's being formed by the belief systems and the assumptions based off of others, right? Based off of your caretakers or what you've been told as fact. And sometimes it can be like things you've experienced firsthand, which, over time, those experiences, they solidify into assumptions, and then assumptions turn into beliefs, right? It's about understanding that if reality is just out picturing of our beliefs and our assumptions and our identity, then sometimes we can kind of get stuck in this continuous feedback loop. And I think a lot of people are honestly stuck in this loop because they're using the reflection of reality to determine who and what they are, right? So, they're using the 3D to determine whether they're loved, whether they're chosen, whether they're fulfilled or not, based off what they can observe, what they can experience in the 3D. And since they're taking the 3D as the final confirmation of what is true and what is available to them, when we start to claim something different, a new identity, and then we see something in our physical world that contradicts that new identity that we've chosen, we kind of revert back and we reinforce the identity that, okay, like, see, I'm not prioritized, I'm not loved, women and men are unavailable to me because this is what I'm experiencing in the world. This must be who I am. But I think what really shifted for me and how I broke out of that cycle was I realized that the identity and the version of myself, right, that believed I wasn't loved, that believed that a healthy, peaceful relationship wasn't available to me, that version couldn't possibly experience the loving, fulfilling, committed relationship that I wanted and I desired if reality can only reflect who I'm being, right? So if I say all day that I want a faithful relationship, right? I want a relationship where I'm seen and I'm heard and I'm understood, but I'm showing up and I'm embodying the version of me that's constantly settling for less, that's, negotiating with disrespect and chasing breadcrumbs, right? Then there's a misalignment of who I am wanting to be and who I'm showing up as, right? I had to go within and I had to choose myself. And what does this mean? For me, it meant, I had to stop using my senses to decide what I could experience. And I had to stop using my perceived past as justification that things could never be different for me. And I think this is a big shift, right? Because this means that you have to imagine greater than what you can just experience with your five senses. This means that you have to believe in yourself and believe in your desire and your dream when the world goes against that, when it tells you not to. And so I had to go within, right? I had to make this internal decision that, okay, even though I can't physically observe it with my senses, even though I hadn't experienced this beautiful, amazing relationship, right? It didn't mean that it wasn't available to me. I had to put my power in my declaration. I had to put my power in my desire and my dream that I was being called to experience. I then had to identify with a new version of me that I wasn't used to identifying as. And so, what this meant for me was re identifying with new thoughts and new assumptions that I wasn't used to thinking, right? I had to show up in life in ways I never did before. I had to start setting boundaries and sticking to my boundaries. And I even had to let go of other people entirely. I had to stop taking on and associating and appropriating everyone else's shitty belief systems because that version of me, right, that was in that relationship would never believe that love was unattainable. It would never believe that commitment was something that wasn't available to me. The version of me who is in their dream relationship wouldn't be thinking and believing these things. It's not enough just to say that, okay, I like to experience this. I have to truly identify as the person who is loved, right? Who's chosen, who's fulfilled. I had to stop placing my fulfillment as something that's conditional and something that's outside of me. Because I believe if I kept waiting for the 3D to validate my worth and my value and that I could experience a love like I'm experiencing now, then I probably would have just still been waiting, right? And I feel like that's a trap a lot of people are in. They are waiting for something to validate them, that they can do, be, or have something. They're using reality as a permission slip before they choose embodiment. What I did is I said, fuck that. Like, although I can't see this relationship. I'm not experiencing the commitment and the loving, fulfilling relationship in my 3D. I can already decide and declare that I am. I can already choose that reality with my consciousness and, with my identity and with my awareness. But again, like choosing a new identity and a new story in face of the old story, it's not always easy, you guys. And sometimes when we decide to embody a new version of ourselves, when we decide to actually think different things and think different thoughts, it feels heavy at first. It feels uncomfortable because our human mind wants to keep us safe and it wants to keep us familiar. That's its job. When you've been conditioned for decades around love and relationships, your mind wants to cling on to the old story, even though you're wanting more for your life. Because I feel like your soul and God is calling you to a higher level of expression and consciousness, right? But your human wants to say, like, stay over here because it's safe and this is what we're used to. And so when most people start thinking new thoughts at first, it feels uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable to the body because the body has been trained, it's been patterned, it's been programmed in a particular way. And when you step out of a familiar belief system and you step into a new paradigm, it's going to feel uncertain at first, right? It's going to feel unfamiliar because we have to understand that your thoughts are what is conditioning your body. Your thoughts are held within your body as energetic frequencies. That in order to change the feelings that live within your body, you have to change the thoughts first, right? And then your body will follow. The body follows the mind. Once your thoughts and your feelings are in alignment, then you just naturally act out of that expression, right? From that state of consciousness that you're identified with. And by changing all of this within myself first and not waiting for 3D to validate something outside of me, right? Reality started to match this identity that I had cultivated. But like I said, it wasn't always easy. Old stories would still pop up, right? I would still get limiting beliefs that would sometimes trigger me, but I decided to remain firm in my decision that, this is who I am now. I am someone who is experiencing their dream relationship, not because the world told me that this is who I was, and not because I seen the evidence first, but because I decided that this is what is now available to me, and I am that I say that I am, right? I became someone who no longer questioned if love was available to me. I just knew it was. It's a knowing. I stopped tolerating inconsistency. I stopped tolerating and putting up with disrespect, right? Because that wasn't a match for this new version of me, the version of me that was in their dream relationship, right? So stop allowing the world to decide who you are based off your past, based off what it looks like, and start matching the version of you that knows, right? That moves with certainty, that embodies the new identity through thought, through your feelings, and then the natural expression of that identity will follow. It's my intention that some of you will hear this and it's going to instantly click. You're going to take this, you're going to apply this, and then you're going to start seeing this new identity reflected back into your reality. And then there's going to be some of you who understand this, right? But you also feel that there are still patterns, there's still programming within you, there's still parts of you that pull you back into that old identity or that old story. And you might want someone to have your back as you shift into this new identity. Sometimes you just want someone to be able to have an outside looking in perspective and, someone who's going to help you shine the light on your blind spots. And this is exactly the work that I help people with. This is the work that I'm extremely passionate about. I've centered this entire YouTube channel around this work. So if you genuinely just want some additional guidance, some support to help you alongside this journey, all of the options are in the description below. And as always, I just want to thank you again, guys, for always giving me so much love on this channel. The basis of this channel is love. It's about expanding the consciousness of humanity. So I truly appreciate every new subscriber I get, every comment, every like, and just want to remind you, if this video helped you, feel free to share it with someone else you think it might help. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.